Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm talking about all things narcissism in the workplace. Is my boss or co-worker a narcissist? In this video, which will be part one of a 4-part mini-series, I'm discussing the drivers of a narcissist, the traits of a narcissist, and the victims of a narcissist. I'm Jo Banks. I've been a professional executive coach for almost 15 years, and I'm sharing what I know. This video, and in fact this whole series, will be a little bit different than what I've been doing in the last few videos. I have decided to take the training that I gave to hundreds of HR professionals about a year ago now on narcissism in the workplace and break it down into 4 separate videos so it's not too much all in one go. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Before we get into the content, let me share a little bit about how I know so much about this topic. Since childhood, narcissism has woven its insidious way throughout my life with family members, partners, and bosses. I've discussed my workplace bullying in detail in previous videos, and I'll leave links to those videos below. About 15 years ago, I decided I wanted to understand more about what was happening with this particular personality type. I've been investigating and researching narcissism and antisocial personality types in all its glorious forms ever since. Because of my extensive knowledge, I now teach therapists, healthcare workers, and HR professionals about narcissism, primarily about how it manifests in the workplace. I hope this series helps others to realise what narcissism is, who it affects, and how to identify it before the damage is done. As with most things, awareness is paramount. So, without further ado, let's have a quick look at an overview of what I'm going to cover in this mini-series. In video 1, this video, we're going to look at a backdrop to narcissism in the workplace. I'm going to look at narcissistic drivers. So what are the things that drive a narcissist? And it was really important for me. Once I discovered this, I wish I'd known this when I was going through narcissistic bullying in work. I talk a lot more about that in previous videos, but oh my goodness, that would have made the whole world a difference to me to know what drives a narcissist. So we'll look at that in this video. We'll also look at the common traits of a narcissist, not from a diagnostic perspective, but the traits that we see most commonly in narcissists. And then we'll discuss their victims. Who are they attracted to? Who do they tend to put most of their narcissism on? So we'll go into that in this video. In upcoming videos, we'll look at the narcissistic abuse cycle. In video 3, I'll go through advice and support. So why narcissism can be hard to spot. Can a narcissist change? Advice for organisations and advice for victims. And in the 4th video, I will take some of the Q&A. I think we had about between 40 and 50 questions from the sessions that I did last year. So I'll take some of those questions and I'll answer those in a video as well. So again, if you haven't subscribed and clicked that like button, notification bell, please do so now so that you don't miss a thing. Before we get into today's detail, just a little bit of an admin bit. Trigger warning for some people who may be experiencing narcissistic abuse, or if you went through narcissistic abuse in the past. Some people have had a lot of bullying in their background and they don't necessarily realise that it's because the people that they've been coming across and attracting into their lives are narcissists, and that can really sometimes trigger people. So this is not meant as a replacement for professional, psychological or medical support or advice. The session will focus on the basics to raise awareness. It is not meant as a diagnostic tool. Take responsibility for your own well-being. If you need professional therapy or advice, please seek out somebody, a medical professional or a psychological professional who can help you. You use the tools and techniques and information that I share today at your own risk. Okay, so let's delve straight in to the common traits. Starting first with the underlying drivers of the narcissist. Now, again, as I just said a little while ago, had I known this would have made the whole world of difference when I was going through my narcissistic bullying. Narcissists are massively insecure. Although they might project that they're fully in control and they're this amazing person, all of that actually has underlying insecurity. They have low self-esteem. They have feelings of unworthiness, feelings of low self-confidence, and massive amounts of shame. It can feel, I know when I talk to people, when I'm doing one-to-one coaching with people who are undergoing narcissistic bullying or have done in the past, they find this really quite hard to believe because on the surface, narcissists tend to present themselves as very grandiose, as if they're really in control and as if the world owes them a favour. However, all of those behaviours are driven by insecurity, low self-esteem, unworthiness, low self-confidence, and massive amounts of shame. What they do is they build themselves up by putting other people down. It seems absolutely incredulous that anybody would do that. But as we go through this series, hopefully you'll understand a little bit more about the drivers, the underlying issues, and the traits of narcissism so that you can realize that it isn't you. It is the narcissist that has the problem. Not that they would want you to believe that because they never take responsibility, but we'll get onto that in the next couple of slides. So they build themselves up by putting others down. What types of narcissists? Well, there are actually lots of types of narcissists, but I've broken them down into two types. Again, this is not diagnostic. This is just to give you an overview of the types of narcissists that you might see, especially in the workplace. So we have the grandiose, the overt, the malignant, the antagonistic types. These are really the over the top, the look at me, aren't I wonderful types of narcissists. They really think they're something special. They are driven by power, control, authority, and a need to win. They want to dominate. They tend to be arrogant and really pretentious. So that tends to be one type. But then we have the lesser able, so the harder to be able to spot narcissistic types. And they're the covert vulnerable narcissists and also the communal. The covert narcissists, it's a lot harder to tell. They don't necessarily present themselves as being grandiose and look at me, aren't I amazing? Neither do the communal. The communal narcissists tend to be those who are always involved in a cause or in a charity. But actually, where the narcissism comes into play is that they're not really doing the help and support for the charity or for the other person. They're doing it for the likes, for the clicks, for the validation and the admiration. So they will scatter their Instagram or their social media full of that, oh, look at me, aren't I so wonderful, selfies of whatever their latest project happens to be. So that's the difference. The covert ones kind of fly under the radar. They're not quite as grandiose. And the communal tend to be those ones that you wouldn't think of. But they're the ones that have a wing of a hospital named after them. So they're the communal narcissists. Now, again, they still want the power, control, authority. They still have that need to win, but they do it much more covertly, much more under the radar. They can have a real victim mentality. But of course, when we play the victim, and I've talked a lot about this in my pity party videos, when people play that narcissist, they get a lot of attention. They get people running around them. They're able to manipulate people. So there's a lot of gain to be had from presenting yourself as a victim. They also tend to look like they're very compliant. So they're the two. They tend to look like they're on opposite ends of the scale, but they can still be really narcissistic. Next, we have the traits of a narcissist. Now, I work a lot with people who have been subjected to narcissistic bullying, either in the dim and distant past or they're going through it now. And I don't just think immediately, oh, that's a narcissist, that person that you're dealing with. I listen to them very closely before I go through this training with them. I'm very, very careful how I present this information. I don't just present it to everybody that shows up saying they've got an issue with their manager or an issue with a co-worker. However, when I do think it's appropriate and I do go through this training with them, this list of traits, which incidentally are not the same as are used for diagnostic purposes. However, when I go through this list, they're very, very common traits. I would say 99% people can tick them off the list as I go. So let's go through these. Grandiose self-worth. So this is this, look at me, I'm important, I'm more important than you, you should do what I say. So there's this feeling of being self-important, more important than everybody else, but actually quite often without any backup for that. They tend not to be necessarily always in positions of power, but they seem to present themselves as if they are. They can have a superficial charm. They can be really, really charming. And this can be a bit of an issue because not all narcissists do their narcissism to everybody. Some do, some don't. Some are very clever on who they pick on and who their victims are. So they present themselves as being absolutely amazing and wonderful. And so if somebody doesn't see the narcissistic side, it can be hard for them to understand because all they're seeing is this beautiful, shiny person, how wonderful they are. So really a quite important one. This is a biggie. They have no empathy. This for me now is one of my red flags. As I said in the intro, I've had narcissists weave their way in and out of my life since childhood. And one of the biggest red flags for me now is if I tell somebody a story about either something that's been going on with me or something that's been going on with a client or a friend, not that I ever divulge confidential information. However, if there is never any show of empathy from somebody, that's a red flag. That's a red flag for me. No empathy, only really narcissists and people on that antisocial arc, if you like, have no empathy. It's odd. They lie with ease. And this can be so confusing because most of us are brought up not to lie and that lying is bad. Narcissists have no issue with that. More than that, what I have noticed with narcissists is as soon as something comes out of their mouths, they believe it to be true, which is really quite a phenomenon when you see it. So lying with ease, and they have no issue placing the blame on other people. So that lying with ease is a very odd one and one to look out for. They are highly, highly, highly manipulative. They can bend with the wind. They can mold themselves into whatever they need to be to get away with things. They are massively manipulative. They will do whatever they can to get what they need from you. They have no remorse. They have no guilt. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of my clients tend to struggle with, because they'll say, how can they do that? How can they say that? How can they be so cruel and just not care? Well, because they're narcissists and they don't care. They have no remorse. They have no guilt. So you can't put your own standards onto them. They don't think the same as we do. They have poor behavior controls. They're not very good at managing their emotions. They can blow off. Oh, they can storm out. They can be really, really dramatic. Another one on the more covert is that they'll sulk. They'll have those pity parties. They'll go internally and feel sorry for themselves. So poor behavior controls is a big one. They do not like to take responsibility for anything. They will blame anyone and anything other than take responsibility for anything that's gone wrong. Of course, they're going to take responsibility for anything that goes right, but anything that goes wrong, they are always going to want to deflect. And that's where gaslighting comes in. And we'll talk about gaslighting in this series. So they are always going to push the blame away. They're not going to take responsibility. They can be really shallow. They're not very deep at all. They're prone to boredness, and when they get bored, that's when they start to meddle and start to use all their manipulation tactics, because a lot of life is a game for a narcissist. They get a lot of joy out of hurting other people. Seems really weird, can't get your head around it, but as we go through this series, I hope that you'll understand a little bit more. They are experts at mimicking, especially at the beginning of a relationship, even a work relationship. And we'll talk more about this in the love bombing phase in the next video. They want to understand everything about you. And the way they do that is by mimicking you. They mimic your likes and dislikes. They will mimic the way you dress. They will mimic your body language, because what they're trying to do is learn as much as they can about you to be able to use against you at some later date. And I know this sounds like I'm a little bit paranoid, but I've been researching this for 15 years. I have left no stone unturned in my research into this topic. And trust me, mimicking is a big one. They have a sense of entitlement. So they can't understand why people wouldn't want to do things for them. They can't understand why you might be angry at them. They can't understand why you might be annoyed that they've taken the credit for your work. They're never going to get that, because they have this sense of entitlement. They need external validation. Whether a grandiose narcissist or the covert narcissist or even the communal narcissist, they absolutely need that external validation. It's key for them. Underlying all of this is a need to control. They have an inbuilt absolute need to control what's going on around them. And so they use all of these tactics to maintain that control. If they tend to lose the control, that's when you see that highly volatile behavior, or when they go internally, they will do almost anything they can to gain that control back. So next, let's look at who are their victims. Anyone can be their victims. I have had people come to me for coaching who've said, I never ever would have thought it would ever happen to me. So really unsuspecting people can fall victim to this type of narcissistic bullying. However, people who believe that everyone is inherently good. So if you were brought up with, I would say, it can come from any religion, but those real Christian values of turn the other cheek. When somebody's mean to you, turn the other cheek and be loving towards them. If you were brought up that way, to look after people and to take care of people and to always think the best of people, great target for a narcissist, unfortunately. If you were raised by a narcissistic caregiver, and this is quite a biggie, if you were raised by a narcissistic caregiver, you might not necessarily see the warning signs, because another narcissist coming into your life will feel like home for you. That's certainly what happens to me throughout my life. Is narcissistic people, as I've said, have woven their way in. I know now what to look out for. I know the red flags, and I'm very well attuned to them. But before I'd done my research and before I knew about this, I would attract narcissists all of the time, because the red flags that other people might see, I wouldn't, because they were so familiar to me, because I grew up in that kind of environment. So if you were raised by a narcissistic caregiver, you might not notice the red flags. People pleasers, people who are high empathy and who have high sensitivity. And incidentally, typically people who are people pleasers, people pleasing starts with parent pleasing. So sometimes there might be a bit of narcissism in your background as well, which has turned you into a people pleaser. Not always. There are other reasons why we become people pleasers, but we can become people pleasers because of narcissistic caregivers. They particularly target professional, independent, strong, well-liked, happy and intelligent people. Everything that they are not. They have a real desire to pull down people they see as more important or more together, or who really are advancing more than they are. They take massive joy in bringing down those types of people. Again, it just seems incredible that anybody would do that. But unfortunately, it's a thing. So they tend to be just some of their victims, but it can be anybody. Anybody can fall foul of a narcissist. Anybody whom they perceive to be a threat is an issue for them. They are going to do whatever they can to bring down, remember what I said earlier, they build themselves up by putting other people down. So anybody they perceive as a threat, they're going to want to try and take down. They're going to want to try and undermine. They're going to want to try and make them feel less than, make the other person, the victim, feel less than, so that they can build themselves up and make themselves feel better and build on that grandiosity. The wrap up. I hope that going through this video has given you a better understanding of the drivers of a narcissist, including low self-esteem, low confidence, low self-worth, high levels of shame. They build themselves up by putting others down. Hopefully, you'll now also be able to recognize the traits. Awareness is everything, and know that anyone can fall foul of a narcissist, especially strong, professional and personable people who are everything that the narcissist is not. What next? In the next video, I'll be discussing the narcissistic cycle of abuse, the step-by-step process that narcissists use to gain and maintain control of their victims. One thing I hear frequently from people when it comes to bullying is, that would never happen to me. Don't be so sure. No narcissist shows their true colours to begin with. It's a slow and systematic erosion of their victim's confidence and self-worth. They like to take from others, especially what they don't have themselves. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, subscribe. It's completely free. And please remember to hit that notification bell so that you don't miss the rest of the videos in this mini-series. If you'd like a free copy of the fact sheet that accompanies this mini-series, I'll leave the link below. Finally, thank you for your continued support, and thank you to everybody who stays until the very end.